I'd like to call this Tampa City Council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Hurtak.
Here.
Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson.
Present.
Vieira. Miranda. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Chief Bennett, you have an administrative update and number 30.
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon to our public, viewing in the chambers. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. First, thanks to Council for moving this to just ahead of staff reports or items off the consent agenda as memorandum. Mayor Castor is recommending Abby Field, who's been the interim administrator over development and economic opportunity since some of our vacancies that happened throughout July and August to date. And that is the recommendation that Mayor Castor has brought forward. As Council is aware, and as I put in the memo, we outsourced our recruiting firm for a national selection process. A lot of that development happened concurrent with the departures between July and August. We got back the candidate pools through September, and of course, October was vetting. We spent of course, everybody knows what's happened between late September and October, but we spent a lot of our time focusing on the housing division director. That person is under background now and looking to join the city the first of the year. And of course, then the additional vetting of the candidates. And knowing that we recruited for an administrator and a housing director, there also seems to be viable opportunities in there for the deputy positions and other positions that were vacated during July and August. So with that said, I would turn it back to Council for any questions.
Councilmember Hurtak.
So you said you vetted 40 people. How many people did you interview?
So the firm interviewed 51 to get down to a list of 9.
But how many did you interview?
Did I interview?
Yeah, like how many did the city interview?
The vetting came through them to us and came down to 9, and we interviewed, we took what they had given us in 5 categories: local experience, extensive experience, strategic innovative leadership, resilient and system savviness, and educational background. That all came from the consultant.
And what did you do with those? Did you interview those 9 people?
We interviewed on the housing director. We had time to interview 3 panels of people, got down to 1. The city only took what was vetted by the consultant for our final candidate.
So you didn't interview others?
We did not interview others because they didn't meet the level of the candidate that the mayor wanted to bring forward.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Carlson Henderson.
Yeah, I just want to say I've enjoyed working with Abby, and at her recommendation, I had lunch with her a couple weeks ago and had a great lunch, talked about how we could work together. And you called me a little while ago and I didn't see it. I apologize. But I have some concerns about the process. I don't think it was a thorough process, and I think with a position this high level, there should have been more interviews. It should have been more transparent. This is arguably the most important position in the city because without running our economic engine efficiently, nothing else works. If we don't run our economic engine, we don't get the revenue to be able to do the things we want. People won't stay in the community, et cetera. As you heard this morning, Ms. Feely gets great kudos from the real estate community. There still are some issues with permitting, and I told the mayor yesterday, I recently ran into Carol Post and I ran into Nicole separately, and I talked to them about our mutual frustration with permitting. Every developer in town and every homeowner in town that's had minus the hurricanes has complained to me about permitting, and it seems to be something that's slowing down our economic engine. We've got to fix that, and if Ms. Feely is chosen today, I hope that she can figure out the secret sauce to get it fixed. But as I've said all along, one of the fundamental problems with Tampa in at least the last 12 years is that we focused on real estate and not on economic development. And we've had what I call the edifice complex, where we measure success by pretty new buildings, not by per capita income and home ownership and the things that other successful cities use. Even though a lot of people in the community don't want to acknowledge that it's true. If you look at the economic numbers, Tampa has failed economically in the last 12 years as compared to other cities. It's just a fact. You can look at the the census data. It's not something anybody made up. I happen to compile it with some USF researchers and with the former dean of the USF College of Business. You all remember when the former dean of the College of Business, who by the way is now the president of the University of North Florida, when he was presenting with me, he said, we can no longer have a strategy to say, thank God that Miami is 7th and we're 6th. We've got to succeed in the future. We've got to fundamentally change economic development. And what frustrates me with the changes is that the whole team, but especially Nicole, Elise, and Erica, we were all working together, I think through the CRA board, and we were working together to create a new model for economic development, the kind of model that successful cities around the world use. And my fear in this is that we're going to be focused on real estate development. When you talked about leadership and all this innovative thinking, all that is great, but what I'm really interested in, the core to this community is economic development. And if Ms. Feely is picked today, I think we need to pick a head of economic development, because the city is going to fail without that. And regardless of what anybody else wants to say about cherry-picking numbers that look good for the city of Tampa has not done well in 12 years. And that's the Great Recession ended in 2009, and since then we have not kept up with other cities. In fact, most of the last 12 years, the middle class shrank in Tampa, which is just embarrassment, and our other numbers have not increased. It takes years to turn a ship, and we were on our way to doing it. And if Ms. Feely has that experience and knows how to do that, you all can talk about it here. What I would recommend is that we delay this a couple weeks and have her come back and talk about what her role is for economic development, and for you to talk about the search process and be more transparent about that. In the meantime, if the vote is today, then because of the process and because of the lack of economic development or a separate economic development position, I would just vote no. Again, I have the highest respect for Ms. Feely. I knew her from the private sector. She's very well respected. She's very good at what she does, but we need economic development in this city. We need to run economic development. And economic development is about the people who buy and lease space, not the buildings themselves. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Chief. How are you?
Doing well.
I have a question about interim roles.
Sure.
We have people currently in interim roles that's been in it a whole lot longer than this position, and they still are in those roles. Why move this ahead of appointments for the interim roles that are currently existing?
So the interim roles have a time clock on them of 180 days, 90 and 90.
So does this one?
Yes. And
Right.
so, and we're coming up on that in this month. And I will say to some of the other comments that have been made is, you know, the beauty of this candidate pool is we're probably going to be able to get 4 people out of this pool that also have some of these more focused areas of experience in economic development, et cetera. But it all starts with the leader, the institutional knowledge that we have in the city, and we're looking forward to building the whole portfolio out, starting with the top.
So the company that you hired, you set the parameters and qualifications with them, and they picked 9 people?
They
Sent you,
They sought out 2,600, that narrowed down to over 50, and then they gave us 9 top candidates, and Ms. Feely rose above all of the other 8.
but if they sent you the 9, didn't they all rise above?
They rose above the macro pool that they started with, of course.
Okay. And then you had your own separate criteria of other things that you were looking for?
Yes, based on what they gave us, they had an ideal candidate based on the requirements we gave them in the beginning. And again, Ms. Feely's the one that came out on top for the things that we
Okay,
mentioned a
I
few minutes
understand.
ago.
So who does this administrator work for? Would this person work for council, or do they work for the mayor?
The mayor.
They work for the mayor, and they are under the direction of the mayor, because this is really important. We have an item coming up, item number 78. So I'm just trying to understand the role of this administrator when this council asks for something. How does that happen with your administrators at the top when it's a legislative matter? You know, how that's handled is something that I'm kind of interest of because of a particular item. And this role has a lot of power. So I don't know if the pushback, if the mayor isn't interested in it and we are because it has the votes, you know, how does this administrator work? Does it require, what would that require for that person when there's 2 different directives, one from council and one from the mayor?
So, with the two branches of government, I think it works collaboratively where the administration bring things to council. Council obviously approves or disapproves those items, and that is all channeled through the agenda process. And I think that's really the beauty of how our government has worked well together.
Oh, okay. So would they have any other authority above are there things that can happen with this particular position where they don't have to come to us?
Not that I'm aware of, outside of an emergency condition.
Okay. And the last thing is that there were a lot of comments that came before council today, very supportive of Ms. Feely, and, she is amazing. She has experience. I agree with that. But there was another side of this where the community was speaking as well, that is very important. And that aspect of this, did you take those into consideration, since that was one of your top criteria, local experience?
Right.
And so when those things were revealed, that was a red flag. How are you going to address that?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. One, during the interim role, obviously, Ms. Feely had to take on those other hats, which were voluminous. I
Yeah.
mean, we had 5 departures in different categories. We have 3 interims and 1 contractor trying to hold down until we get those positions formally filled. And I think once all the bandwidth is in place, we're confident. We've seen Ms. Feely's work ethic. We know she has the institutional knowledge. She will have the ability to go out and then lead in all these other categories with her new staff. So it has to start with her being at the top for the selection process. And as everybody knows, our administration is less than 30 months remaining, and that's also a difficult recruiting process
Yeah.
from what we've discovered.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. Okay, I think that's it for now. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yep, I have my,
Councilmember Vieira, and, wait, did you already speak? You
no, I
already
just
did.
had one question. I didn't
Shoot,
realize
go
that
ahead.
was the.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
To kind of piggyback on what Councilwoman Henderson said about the community, the thing that does concern me after the community spoke today is the fact that her original house was housing. Like, her original hat was housing, and people are saying that she has not been responsive to housing.
Can I clarify that for you? It was, from my experience, it was not Nicole Travis took housing specifically under her and had Kaon reporting directly to
Okay,
her.
okay, yeah.
So.
Oh, I'm
Ms. Feely
sorry,
did
I
not
didn't
have
mean
that.
housing, I meant development, growth management, my apologies, so thank you. But still, not going out to the community is definitely an interest. I'm concerned about the fact that institutional knowledge was a portion of a search, because that's impossible for anyone else to overcome. It
That was
is
an outcome.
absolutely impossible.
Yeah, that was an outcome. I think what I was conveying is that local experience, meaning you understand the state codes, the local codes, the regional codes for, just pick a category, hurricanes, and development and response to these hurricanes. So, if you come from a state or another jurisdiction and you may not, so that was one piece of the, what they would call the ideal candidate, is to understand these codes. And again, if the learning curve is steep with 30 months remaining, and then you got to pick people under you, how far do we get on the roadmap that was discussed earlier is, I think,
But
the
see,
concern.
that's what I'm concerned about, because to me, an administrator is someone who oversees other people. So that person doesn't need to have the minute knowledge that the person under them has. To have a knowledge of how the state system works is great, or to even have a regional, but to say that I necessarily need a administrator to understand local codes is, again, asking for a unicorn. So I am disappointed that we didn't do what I think was a real search, because to even not be able to bring back people that you interviewed, that you spoke to, is concerning. The concerns from the community are drastic and very worried to me. When the NAACP said that they don't get a response to phone calls, I don't usually either, to be honest. And I've heard from other folks today that have said the same thing. And so that's something that I spoke with Abby about, and hopefully we're going to be able to fix if she's chosen. But historically, that has not been the issue. And it is also interesting, the folks who came today to speak, they're the bigger developers, the wealthier developers, developers who've been here for a while. What we didn't hear from are the people that I've heard from for the since July, worried about this particular pick. From small developers, from architects, from property owners, from staff, from community, who are very concerned about this pick, mainly because of how they've mentioned the difficulty in working with her. So for me, that is a big red flag, and that is something I'm not going to be able to overlook. If she's chosen, I am looking forward to working with her, but I cannot give her my vote today.
Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And there's a couple of things at play here. One thing that does weigh upon me is, and Chief Bennett said this, about having 2.5 years left and the difficulty in finding somebody who could prospectively leave his or her job to come here for a very limited time. That's certainly something that weighs on me. I'm relying upon conversations I've had with Ms. Feely that I'm going to ask her about in a little bit that I think are very, very important issues. For me, one of the just prime critical issues that we're going to be looking at in the next 2.5 years and maybe 2 decades is the post-Milton affordable and workforce housing crush in this city. That post-Milton, we've seen a lot of communities that were home to affordable housing and workforce housing, where people who are nurses and teachers and first responders and welders and electricians and plumbers could afford to live there. And people who are working desperately hard to get into the middle class could have a shot at living in these communities. And Milton, in North Tampa, and places like Forest Hills, like Overlook, like University area, we see that in the county too with our friends in Town and Country, has taken such a tremendous hit. And I worry long-term what that's going to do to that area there. I had made a motion. Milton, I think, occurred on October 8th, 9th, or 10th. I made a motion immediately after that to take a look at the administration pushing some sort of funding mechanism, right, to help people post-FEMA. Couldn't get support for that. Then I went forward with replacement motions to try to get to where I was going, maybe through different means we're there. And I think we're there. But in the meanwhile, I've been working with Ms. Feely and with the administration, because look, I just want to get it done. I talk every single day to people who are at risk of losing their house, of losing their apartment, losing their home that they have a mortgage on or that they pay rent for, whatever it may be, because of Milton. They live in non-flood zones, Zone X, and their life has been upended. And I want this city to do everything that it can, like we did a couple of years ago for people in the affordable housing crisis that continues to today post-COVID for Milton. Ms. Feely has given me her word, and they're working right now on a package to help people. Not going to get into the details of it, but she has given me her word that we are working towards that goal for something, and it's going to be proposed and pursued and presented in early January here in Tampa City Council. That for me is the most important thing. The people who lost everything in Milton may not come here to City Council every single week, but you know what? Their suffering exists. It exists, and it's cruel, and it's deafening, and it is outrageous what these people are going through, and we need to help them. She's given me her word in that regard. I'm going to rely upon her word in supporting her. Another issue she's given me her word on is disability housing. 2 days ago, I was speaking to a friend of mine, Tanya Whitlock, who runs the Hive, deals with accessible housing for people with disabilities. Ms. Feely has given me her word on going forward with some sort of, and I'll let her speak to it, a housing push for a development for people with disabilities. You know, we can't leave those folks behind on any issue. We've been making great progress on things like internships and jobs and accessible playgrounds, et cetera, for those folks. We got to look closely at housing as well. So she's given me her word on these issues. I'm going to rely upon that. But again, for me, when it comes to economic development, the most important thing that we have here in the city of Tampa since October has been the punch right between the eyes that accessible and workforce housing is taken in Tampa, thanks to Milton, where the working people of this city, many of them, well, most of them without flood insurance, don't have anywhere to go. And they need our help. And Ms. Feely has said that she will help us get there. I'm going to rely upon that in supporting her. Because again, All I want is movement for these people because they're going through hell. They are right now on fire and they're begging us for a couple of ice cubes. Let's do it. Thank you.
Understand, and the administration is going to support, obviously, you know, that turn of events that we went through, of course, over the last comparison by 100 years with the density that we have requires traction. And that was a lot of the reason that Ms. Feely also stood out, is the backside of this event that was unpredicted in July.
Miranda, Clendenin.
Thank you. Just a couple of things here. In fact, today is Thursday. I believe it was Tuesday afternoon when I came in. I was in the office about 8:30, and I see a lady knocking on the door. Well, I didn't know who she was, but I let her in. And she was a lady that had called the office, and we tried to reach her. She tried to reach us. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So here's a lady comes in, gets dropped off at the University of Tampa by the bus line, walks all the way. She had never been on this side of town. Walks, finally finds City Halls and finds the third floor. They tell her where to go. So it happens that I was here, not that I planned it, but I was here, and I let her in the office. So she started telling me, then I started looking at Mary's file where she had called, they had a conversation. And this lady's 81 years old, only has her Social Security check, and that's it. There's nothing left. Then she told me where she lived, and I said, I know exactly what it is, 2 blocks north of Cascade Park. So I told her, I said, what's your problem? And then she almost started to cry when I told her about a problem. I calmed her down, and she started telling me my roof's got 8 or 10 leaks that I can't cover. Even when it rains a little bit, I can't cover them all. I don't have the money for a roof, and I'm going to lose my house because it's going to flood from within. So I talked to her for a while. In fact, that was the same day that we were doing the thing in West Tampa on the park that we, the park at the corner of Albany and Maine. So I told her, look, if you want to come with me, I'll take you back home so you don't ride the bus. So she went with me to the park. And again, she would listen to all the allocates and everything about how wonderful it was there, the old City Hall in West Tampa and so forth and so on. So finally, I drove her to take her home. And when I saw the house and I saw the roof, she wasn't correct. She was 1,000 times correct. The house is still standing pretty strong, but the roof is completely gone, where it's nothing other, but you can see, if you get on, you can see down. So that goes on, and I called Mary. Mary called someone, and finally come to Abby Feely. This is all unedited. So we get a call that the lady's going to call her, see if there's any funds available to help her out. But at the interim, I keep calling the lady, and I can't get in. I can't answer it. I don't get an answer. So I told Mary the day after work I was going to go to the house, knock on the door, so I could give the number to the lady who may try to help her if there's funds available. But like that, like Councilman Vieira was saying, there's hundreds of people. This is just one example of what's going on in the city.
Yeah.
And sure, we come into work every day. Sure, we work hard. But we're not facing the same dilemma that they're facing. That today you're there, and you may not be there tomorrow because it'll be inhabitable. So these are the things that we're working on, and I'm sure that she's going to help because she's the one that called the lady. The lady called her. Unbeknownst to me, all this happened. So here's where I'm at today. I'm going to go see on that lady's door. I know where she lives. It's on the way home. Even if it wasn't, I would stop by and talk to her, give her the number who to call. That's one instance. There are so many things that need to be. In fact, I guess this is the first time that you could have got anybody outside the city of Tampa to come work for you that they didn't have to live in the city. Mm-hmm. And hooray to people who did that.
Sure.
You know, we hired a man some months back, and I said, that's the smartest individual I've ever met in my life, even though I forgot his name. We hired him at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we were having a city council that night at 8, and he called and says, I'm sorry, but I don't want to work for you guys. You're not what I want to see. You're not what I want to work with. Here's a man, didn't know any one of us. But he had the sense of smell and knowledge to say, I'm staying away from these 7. And he did. And let's go back to the other 4. The CRA person did not work for the mayor. Am I correct?
That is correct. They work for the CRA board,
And she also retired, right? On her own volition, am I correct?
to my understanding. Yes.
So I'm not blaming everything on anybody. People can like us or dislike us. I don't care if they like me or not. I just want them to do their damn job. But that's just 2 instances. I can go on, but I'm not going to knock the city. We have done a lot more than anyone ever anticipated on doing. We're bringing the fire and police up to par where it should be years ago. The last one to do that on the police anyway was Dick Rick when he hired 103 cops, and the feds gave him money for 3 years, and then we had to absorb the overhead, the payment, and the employment contract. We did that in the mid-90s. So here we are facing the same dilemma. What comes around goes around again. We're still short on there, and we're still short in fire, and we're working on those things very diligently. So what more do you want? When you don't do anything, you can never say you're wrong. When you try to do something, you got 50-50 chance that you're going to be right, and 50-50 chance that somebody's not going to like you. And that's how it is. That's what politics is all about. So I'm here to say that I have no qualms with your selection. It was done ethically, as far as I'm concerned. It was done when proper. So my time is up, and I resign my time to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Clendenin, and then I'll go.
Okay, I'll say a couple of things. I hear some of my fellow councilpersons speaking about this position, and it's so out of context because policy decisions, Ms. Feely currently works for the administration, does not work for council. Expectations are set by the administration. Job performance and evaluations are done by the administration, not this council. And the issues that were brought up earlier by my fellow members of council are policy decisions that, yes, we fund, and there's things that come before us for funding and priorities, and then Ms. Feely would be the implementer of those policies, but we would set those policies. So it's not up to Ms. Feely to create, affordable housing, or that's for us to. So even setting an expectation that she's going to do this or do that is unrealistic. The policy, the elected people in the city, the mayor and these 7 people that sit on this dais, are responsible for that, and then she's responsible to perform within those standards. And I don't see any evidence that she has not done that. On the permitting issue, I've heard since I've sat on this council, I've heard complaints from somebody that's sitting out there in the audience today about permitting. I keep saying, bring me an example of a permit that is a problem. And I said, I will bring it forward. And I've yet to get an example. So I hear it as well all the time. And I said, bring me an example, but nobody brings me an example, so we can't follow through. So I dismiss that as well. On affordable, I'm going to pivot to on affordable housing. I think it's also disingenuous this city has done way above our pay grade on housing, probably well beyond our what would be fiscally responsible for the size of our budget and what we're doing. Even today, we have $10 million on this agenda for housing, $10 million for just today. And we over and over and over again, since I've sat here, we've been dishing out money for housing. This city has been doing it. We have stood up. A lot of these things, reference post-storm, there's lots of federal assistance. There's all kinds of programs. I think it's just a matter of, Councilman Carlson said this earlier, people are having trouble navigating the system. There's tools to do that. We can assist, other people in the city can assist, people in the county can assist, your federal legislators, your members of the House of Representatives can assist, because the SBA has got it, FEMA's got assistance. There's all kinds of things that are out there to help people. It's well above the scope and the ability of the city of Tampa to be able to perform at that level. But again, that's a policy decision that's done by this council and the mayor, not an employee of the city of Tampa. I think we have to be realistic about what the roles are of employees and who they work for, what their expectations are, and yes, we provide consent on these items for these levels of employment, but I think it would have to be overwhelming to find out that there's something, like we see what's happening in the national level, people that are morally corrupt, or there's some scandal involved that would prevent somebody from being confirmed. Absent something like that, I think it's our responsibility to, look for things like that are like really big red flags. But absent that, as somebody who's doing their job and doing their, and accomplishing what their employer, the administration has set out for them,
you know, we may have issues, and maybe the issue is not with the employee, but it was with the person that they report to. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. So, Chief, you know, I'll say that I believe in Tampa. I make it a point to tell people that I'm born, raised, and educated here because I never left. And there's no other place that I would live in. Having said that, I know that the best and the brightest are here in Tampa. And I personally loathe national searches because I look at this room, I see most of the legal department here, some of the best attorneys in town are right here in the city of Tampa. And we are lucky, we are blessed to be able to say that. I see Dennis Rogero, fantastic individual. I mean, so I could go down the list. We are so lucky to have the kind of talent that we do here in the city of Tampa. I've worked with Abby Feely since I got elected. She went into private practice, and she came back. I know from people personally that her reputation is stellar. People in the community, she has big shoes to fill. When I was growing up, it was a man named Fernando Noriega that worked with Mayor Greco. There's a person that I looked up to when I thought, you know, wow, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to, you know, want to be on council, want to be a part of the community, work in local municipal government, and be like these people. She's walking in those footsteps. When I came on board, it was Bob McDonough and Mayor Buckhorn. Each person has their unique skills. They're very qualified individuals. Whether I like them or don't like them, I see Tampa has become a much better place since I was a kid, and I see it. I hope we continue on the trajectory. I hope whomever the next mayor is, we continue going up. But looking at, you know, the responsibilities of this job, it's a lot of work. Again, I remember conversations when I was a kid with Fernando and my grandmother, working with Bob McDonough. You know, I saw it from the personal side and on the professional side. It's a huge undertaking. This position is huge. Nicole Travis, one of my favorite people of all time, you know, one of the biggest losses we've ever had, and someone I hugely respect. I mean, we had Nicole Travis. But other than Nicole Travis, there's Abby Feely. I mean, if I have a level of respect for somebody in this position of this caliber, I don't think you'll find anyone better. Again, when we do a national search, I get it. You want to be fair and you want to offer the opportunity to everybody. But at the same time, the best and brightest people are already here in our community. I'm happy to move forward today and support her. I've thought about this long and hard. If I were in the position of appointing a person, who would I pick? I don't know. It's big shoes to fill. I would say Nicole Travis would be my first choice. We already had Nicole Travis. Then there's Abby Feely. I think moving forward today is good. This is something that may continue with this mayor's term, which is about 28, 29 months to go. That may be it. The next mayor could come in and you know, go a different direction. But in the meantime, there's too much going on to pick someone from outside, someone who knows the community, can hit the ground running, is hitting the ground running. I mean, is already here. There's too much at stake, and I don't want to waste any time in retraining somebody, bringing somebody in, having somebody become familiar with the community. Again, the best and the brightest are here, and I think we should always forget the national search. We should always hire from within because there's so many good people. And that's where I'll stop. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to say, you know, it's so funny because we had this conversation in the parking lot about interim positions and why can't we just hire within, because we do have great people. I agree with that. The other part is, you know, at the end of the day, the mayor gets to decide who she wants, and she has done that. But one of my concerns is the interim roles of everybody else. You know, it's the same thing. There's 30 months left. And people are in these interim positions with 30 months left, and the housing director that you're recommending is not local. So it's like, what are we doing? The philosophy should be consistent. You want to address that?
Yes, Councilwoman. First, the 90 days, 180 days, an interim part is within the charter framework. So these are charter positions we're talking
Right.
about. The housing division lead is not a charter position.
Okay.
And they are in the region, so they understand Matter of fact, when we filtered down those opportunities, we actually have vetted out other folks that will work in housing or could work in housing from this national search, which I could segue into the economic side too. We have folks that seem to have very strong backgrounds specifically in the economic development when we start looking at the deputies. So, you know, these things are gonna really work out once we fill the top position and start working down the list even further. As far as the other positions that are interim, again, it's been our philosophy. I've had 1,300 people, 2,000, now 5,000, that you pick the top leader and make sure that, talking about the roadmap, that make sure everybody understands that there is a roadmap, that they're gonna merge into that roadmap, and they're gonna carry the city forward for the next 30 months until a new administration takes effect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If I can just say a couple other things to Council Miranda's point, you know, this is not my area of expertise. Of course, it's more in the public safety space. But when we focused on each victim, that's how crime went down. When Mr. Miranda talked about a house with a roof, I can tell you that Ms. Feely's been in my office at least twice a week talking about owner-occupied rehab and what it's gonna take to get the job order contracting, to get that going with all of the internal stakeholders. So there's a tenacity to get to each of those doorknobs, to save the ones that are at risk from the storms, to keep our folks here in Tampa, as well as get the additional doorknobs that are needed for housing affordability. Not to mention, there's never been a time that I've been at Tampa Hope and Ms. Feely's not been at Tampa Hope, taking care of and advocating for the homeless. I think a lot of the things that were discussed today have opportunity once the person is in place in the administration. And secondly, the bandwidth is there to get back to the constituency, the community, and make sure that all of those voices are heard. So that's the hope I have based on the shot clock that we've had to work with the complexity that we all are aware of. Thank you.
Clendenin Carlson.
I was gonna move to approve the nomination by the mayor of appointing Abby Feely as the administrator for development and economic opportunities.
We have a second. Councilman Carlson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. Chief Bennett, you remember, and I just looked at the numbers again over the weekend. If you look at the FBI crime statistics that the city of Tampa Police Department reported, from 2018 to 2021, they spiked. And you and I and the mayor had discussion on this, and you all talked, I said, I don't understand how to fix this. You all, that's your area, you have 35 years of experience, whatever. And you all fixed it, the numbers came down. You made a bunch of changes and things came down. My background is heavy in economic development, and the numbers that we measure in economic development are standard numbers. They're all the best cities in the world measure them. I had the top economist, data analytics guy from USF come in. I had the dean of the College of Business come in. I've had the Florida Chamber Foundation people. We know what the numbers are that we need to measure. And I know you're a data guy too. So if this goes through today, which it sounds like, I want to just say publicly, I'm happy to work with Ms. Feely and anybody she has. Javier's another great person inside, and there are other great people. But just like we were heavily collaborating with Nicole and Erica and Elise, and as we go forward, there's a balance of powers in the charter. The mayor picks the person. The balance, just like in Congress, we get to select them. If we agree with the person, then we share the responsibility with the mayor. But after that, as I said to the mayor after the election last year, her legacy and our legacy are the same. If we don't hit those economic numbers, all of us get blamed. If we do hit the numbers, we all get credit. We've got to work together to hit those numbers. We've only got 2.5 years. We've got to work really hard and really fast. And it's not going to be measured in square feet or shiny new buildings. It's going to be measured in the impact to the people of Tampa, positive impact. Thank you.
And I'm confident Ms. Feely will lean into all of that. Yes, sir.
Councilman Moran.
I'm glad you said that, Mr. Carlson, because numbers tell the truth, but numbers also lie. And let me explain that. Let's say a planned city's got 40,000 people, has 4,000 people increase of that current year. Well, they went up by, what, 10%? City of Tampa, let's say it's got 400,000. And they go up by 4,000, they went up 1%. So even though we went up, because the other scale numbers is smaller than we are, and the population went by the same amount, it raised 10%, well, this one only went 1%. So what I'm saying is that numbers are great to have, You can certainly lead them, but you gotta put it all in perspective of what it was before and what it is after. And I asked the people that left 2 or 3 times why, and they would not tell me why. And I asked them in fact, you can ask Nicole Travis. I saw her way before she resigned, walking in the courtyard, and I told her, come here, I want to talk to you. And I said, your sense of being and your sense of reflecting on yourself is telling me you're planning to leave. This was 3 or 4 weeks before she resigned. Her body language was telling me she was not happy. You can ask her, anybody can ask her. So it's not that I knew, just that personality changed all of a sudden through a little migration of 2 or 3 weeks. I could tell by the language of the body that the mind was telling her it's time to go. And that's what she did. Who else thought it was? I don't know. So we gave her so much work. And Mr. Drumbo also, who knows why they left? They never told us. I don't know if anybody told you, but we never. I don't know. Call them up and ask them. Have an investigation. Because we don't know. I can only tell you that I don't know why they left, and I asked them twice both.
Understand.
We have a motion and we have a second. Roll call vote?
Carlson? Hurtak?
No.
Clendenin?
Yes.
Henderson?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Maniscalco?
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson and Hurtak voting no.
Thank you very much. Item 65.
Chairman, would it be okay for council's pleasure for Ms. Feely to come up and address council real quick? I think it would be.
I'm sorry, Chief Bennett, can you say that again?
Move to allow Ms. Feely to
Oh,
speak.
Come on
Speak
up.
for a moment to her position.
Thank you, council, and thank you for the appointment. I am truly grateful to stand before you today and accept the appointment. Many of you know I started with the city in July 24th of 1999, and over the years, I've been able to see the city change firsthand, both with opportunities and challenges. I've heard everything that has been said here today, and I don't take it lightly. I take it seriously. That's who I am, and many of you know that, and the public, I believe, knows that. I heard Ms. Lockett this morning and others, and I did speak to her for a moment. You know, I think since July, when I've been filling this role, unfortunately, I've been filling a lot of roles with a lot of hats, which have impeded me from doing some of the other work that needs to get done. I am committed to the roadmap that was started and that has a promising future for our city in terms of affordable housing. I am committed to working with building back the homes that many of our residents have lost and making us a more resilient city because there are going to be challenges and opportunities that will come before us again, and I hope that we can stand ready together better than we were this hurricane season. So I appreciate the opportunity. I've spoken with all of you, and I stand by the discussions that we've had and the path forward for what those relationships look like. I'm always available, and I am committed to filling the other positions with a balance that will strengthen us in order to take this team forward as we finish out this term with council and with the administration. So thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Item number 65. Suling. You're the
Oh, that's us.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Councilman Carlson.
I'm going to recuse myself from this. My firm does not work with this company that's listed here, but I think we work with a related company, and I talked to Marty, and without being able to do extensive research, I'm going to recuse myself in abundance of caution and step up. Yeah, number 65.
65 and 66?
No, just 65.
Okay.
Abundance of caution is just that I don't know for sure the answer, because I just figured out that there might be an issue today. And so what the ethics rules say is, and if you have any doubt, you should recuse yourself. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll be back for 66.
Thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Shelby will provide the document, right? Yeah. All right, item number 65.
Council, thank you. Abby Feely. Soon to be sworn in administrator. Sorry, I didn't know that would come right up after that. Item number 65, as Councilman Clendenin just mentioned, we have two housing agreements that are on the agenda this afternoon. And the first is item number 65. This is for $5 million toward the Adderley Phase 2. Many of you were just at the Adderley ribbon cutting, which is at Bush in Nebraska. And they are looking to do a second phase to that development, which would be 100 senior affordable housing units. I know in some of the discussions we've had in financing, we keep talking about subsidization and how much we're gonna give toward units. And in some of the discussions I had with you in briefing on these two agreements, some of you had asked, how much have we given? What does that look like per unit? What does it look like over the 50-year period that we're funding these units? And I do have, in relation to this development agreement, I'm sorry, these were both on the same page. This is 100 total units of senior housing with a $5 million city subsidy. These are 100% of these units are affordable at an 80% or below AMI, which I know through our housing needs assessment, we have targeted that the city is in the greatest need of units at the 80% or below. The affordability period is 50 years, so a per unit city subsidy of $50,000, but a per month subsidy over that period ends up being $88.33 a month for the city's contribution. The total development cost is $34 million, and the total cost per unit for the developer is $346,331. So we're making a small contribution toward that. It is a 50-year affordability period for these 100 units, and we would respectfully request your approval. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor of 65? Aye. Any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson abstaining.
Thank you. Councilmember Hurtak.
I have to abstain from item number 66 because I live on that block and don't want to be, I feel like that's a conflict of interest, so.
No worries. All right, item number 66.
So close proximity should eliminate us?
If you're within the notice
With-
area.
I wasn't, there's no notice area, but for me, I could financially, technically benefit or not benefit from this, so I just don't think that I should be making that decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
An abundance of caution. Yes, ma'am, go ahead, 66.
Thank you very much. Item number 66 is the second of the two housing agreements. This also is for $5 million. And this is located at the corner of Florida and Henry. If you've driven by there right now, the property is owned by Middle Bay Homes, and it was set for a single-family residential. We all know Florida Avenue is a very a high traffic corridor and one of our transportation emphasis corridors. So placing affordable housing on this corridor is a very good use of the property versus the single family homes. So the applicant who applied under the RFP for this has the property under contract, and they're looking for city support of the $5 million. The first would be for the land acquisition, $1.46 million. I did the numbers on this as well for the 52 units, and this is an affordable market split at this property. And so this would be 50% of the units are again at that 80% AMI or below, which is our target area for getting units to come on board. And this is in a different area of the city. At the 50 years, this ends up being $96,000 a unit. And over the 50 years, it's $160.26 a month. The total development cost of the project is $15 million, and the total cost per unit is $301,000.
We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Well, you know what, I
Wait,
want to
I'm sorry.
say something really
Yeah.
quickly. This qualifies truly as the missing middle right here, you
Yeah.
know. not that other one, but we'll talk about that one later. I just wanted to say that. This is because it sits on a transportation corridor and it makes sense. So I like this project. Thank you.
Councilmember Quindana.
Yeah, I'm going along with this one, not because, and Abby knows how I feel about remember, this is all gonna be borrowed money. And this is a third of the cost of we're subsidizing 1/3, as opposed to the previous development is a much smaller percentage of the cost of the development. It's also doubling the cost per month, and again, this is without, was interest involved in that calculation as well? Is that just right off the top? Your cost?
It's just right off the top.
Right off the top,
Because,
okay.
I think as I mentioned, we're gonna use a line of credit for this.
Right.
And because, I don't know if Sean's still here. Sorry about that. But in terms of our funds, when we give it, they're reimbursable funds. So if Adderley 2 starts now and starts through the permitting process, while we are committing to that project today, the 5 million, he is not gonna start pulling down from that line of credit for a while.
Right.
So we will not pull $10 million tomorrow and be paying interest on that the entire time. We will be pulling more toward the end of the project, and then it would be for a shorter amount of time.
No, I definitely understand. I just wanted to restate publicly that for these two projects, this one, we put the RFP out, we're committed to doing these things. People have made investments and plans based on this. But I think for future, again, considering where we are with the city of Tampa and the limited resources and the funds, we have to be a little bit more diligent about what we're borrowing and how we're going about these future developments. Again, this is commitments we've kind of, in principle, have already made, so we're just living up to the principles the commitments we had previously made. So I think it's our responsibility to follow through with that, but we just need to be a little bit more fiscally prudent in the future. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other thing is the cost of the loan and the interest and everything. There are all these there are these projects that are going through a pipeline, but one of the things that I was working on with Nicole and Elise and Erica, and we had talked about it publicly. I don't know that we had voted on it, but they were working on it. And Kaon was creating a spreadsheet. One of the criticisms we get is that the smaller developers are at a disadvantage compared to the big developers, because in the past, the city has said, well, we don't only want to work with one big, because we're counting units instead of trying to help. And so the smaller developers, like Habitat, for example, they feel like they're left out sometimes. And if we had a spreadsheet that said 80% AMI for 30 years, we're going to give, I don't know what the number is, let's say 100,000 per unit. If it's 2-bedroom, then it's 120. If it's 3-bedroom, it's 130. If it's 50 years instead of 30, then they get more. If it's 100% AMI, then they get less. But if we have a spreadsheet like that, and we were doing this with CRA, I think we just need something that's fair and transparent. Instead of a developer coming to us and saying, hey, like we had at the CRA where they said, hey, I just need $12 million to fill my gap. What we need to say is, and we can adjust it based on the market or the part of the city, but if you want to build affordable housing, here's how much we'll subsidize for the kind of unit you're going to do. And it's the same for everybody. So whether you're building 1,000 units or 2 units, you're going to get the same. And I hope we can get to that, because it'll provide great transparency. I think it will speed up the process and help us get to it. So I'd love to work with you on that in the future.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. This is 66. And
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtak abstaining.
Thank you, council.
yes, ma'am. All right, next up is 71, which goes with 72. Mr. Washington is here, and Mr. Perry and others, so we'll get into that. I'll be right back.
Mr. Washington, the keeper of all things solid waste in the city of Tampa.
Collectively, my team, of course.
He's more than that.
Oh, that's right, he's a TikTok star,
Oh,
I didn't say that.
I wouldn't say that either.
an influencer.
If they pay me for it, maybe, but
Hey, you keep that up, and you will be. We will lose you to Hollywood.
and can I have the slide, please? Oh, everyone get situated. Let's see.
There we go.
Okay, all right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Washington, Director of the Solid Waste Department.
Hold on a
Happy
second.
to
Can
be-
you bring that up on this council monitors, please?
Okay, all right. I see it on my end.
Thank you.
Okay, yep. I'm Larry Washington, Director of the Solid Waste Department. Happy to be here today. It's been a long time coming. Been gainfully employed over the last few months, but like my friends in the back would say, we can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. So, thank you. Now, a lot of this, and of course, I'm here with the city staff and the construction firm as well, which is Kokalakis, with Mr. Jose and Rod. Now, as a brief recap before I dive into the presentation, I've been in front of you a few times, which is a great thing. So back in July of 2022 is when you decided to move forward with the design approval. So that was approved in July of 2022. I came back before you in August of 2022 to unpack the entirety of the project, and then a few more times after that during the grade 8 presentations. So every grade 8 presentation, I was there first and foremost and out in the forefront. So most of the information you're going to see here is going to be regurgitated, which is a good thing, meaning that we've briefed you on a constant basis and there's no changes. So I'll go back to the slide. All right. So we'll briefly go over this and then jump right into the construction phase so you can understand how that's going to play out, and then close out with the project benefits. So this just unpacks how we got here. May 2019, we had the cost estimate without fleet, of course. Moving forward, February 27, 2021, we included fleet, and the cost estimate was $56 million. And then going forward, of course, we had the RFQ, the CCNA process is how we landed on Kokalakis, which I'm glad that we did, luckily. And then moving forward, today I'm in front of you to discuss the 90% GMP for the relocation of the solid waste complex. And we were right under $107 million, which is our budget for this project. Later on in the slides, I'll show you where we move forward with the $130 million line of credit. So that gives us the latitude to move forward with this project and include fleet as well. So I'll be back before you, of course, given what the determination is after I present on the 19th, and hopefully we can move past and break ground in January of 2027. So some of the why behind it, of course, I'll move through this quickly as well. I know time is limited. As you can see here, we have a map from Spruce Street, which is our current location, going all the way to 34th Street, which is where our waste energy facility is. So we dispose of our waste, the majority of it. So we can conservatively say it's 25 minutes. Now, that's a time saving, so we have qualitative benefits and quantitative benefits as well, which I'll unpack at the very tail end. But just here, saving 25 minutes for 100 garbage trucks, 100 solid waste vehicles, it equates to $300,000 saved in overtime per year. In addition to that, there's a more financial gain because we end up decreasing the amount of money spent towards truck and fuel maintenance, which is up to $1 million per year. Moving forward, so we have the budget. I'll start with the WIMBY. So the BBE is 12%, the SLBE is 12% as well, so total WIMBY of 24%, and BBE is black businesses, SLBE, so local businesses, small local businesses. Moving forward with keeping double digits for projects such as these, since this is a multi-million-dollar project. Like I mentioned, we have $18 million parked aside for the fleet maintenance building, which is great to see because we want to keep them on our campus as well. There was an increase in scope, and it's primarily due to the unsuitable subsurface materials that is at the McKay Bay location. So it calls for reinforced pilings and the whole nine associated with all those different buildings that we are going to be erecting. In addition, we had to increase the garage size as well. We have 100, we call them the fish bones, and they are our CNG station pumps. So we have 100 slots for all those vehicles. However, we have 130 solid waste vehicles. So we will have to park some of those on the bottom floor of our parking garage. And we wanted to move forward with a bathroom as well. So right now we don't have any outside bathrooms for the customers over at the scale house or the employees. So we added a small bathroom, it's a prefab bathroom. And then in addition to that, we added a northern scale house. So that northern scale house gives us the ability to move all of our garbage trucks from the general entry where we currently have within the scale house to the northern section of it, which is right above the impound lot that you know of. The line of credit, I know that you've seen this a few times before, brought forth to you by Mr. Dennis O'Hara when we had our presentation. So we have a $130 million line of credit. So going back some, we have $107 million for the relocation of the complex. We have $18 million for the fleet building. That's a grand whopping total of $125 million. So we have a $5 million delta for any type of other contingencies that we may need associated with this project, so we don't have to come back once again. Moving forward, this is our layout. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see 34th Street campus. This is where we will be going, of course, pending the decision here. So you can see the Northern Scale House, as I referenced, the garage, the operations building, which is right off of 34th Street. There'll be a guardhouse, and then the additional scale house. So the additional scale lane, for the scale house will have another ingress and egress with the option for the egress to go back and forth. So let's say there's a buildup in traffic exiting either or transfer station, since we have two of them. We say transfer station A and transfer station B going from left to right. If there is a backup there, then we can switch gears and start to send people out quicker. Previously, with our master plan, one of the cogs in the wheel was to erect a bigger scale or transfer station for us, so that we can accommodate the current waste and waste to come with all of the development going on within the city of Tampa. And now we can do that, but we're just landlocked, and there's a backup right there at the scale house. But this project here improves it. So, and I mentioned financial benefits as well, not just savings. So there will be a revenue increase we're anticipating of 10%. So we generate $6 million worth of revenue at the scale house or the transfer station. So we're anticipating a 10% increase of throughput, which in return should garner $600,000 per year. And on the right-hand side, you see Spruce Street campus. So we're currently housed at, along with our sister department, so Fleet and Lamb as well, and that is 19 odd acres there in the Carver City area. Now, how we led into Kokolakis, of course, we went through the RFQ process, and then moved forward with the CCNA, and then, of course, it was award, like I mentioned before, to Kokolakis. The design firm is Baker Barrios. They've been doing a great job as well. I'm looking forward to showing you the rendering. And I have them behind me, and they're going to co-present as well. So that's Mr. Jose and Roderick as well. Now, I'll go ahead and usher up, all right, Mr. Roderick, and I'll hold your click for
Okay,
you.
great.
It's a little finicky.
Hi, my name is Rod Voigt. I'm executive with Kokolakis Contracting. We've been working on the McKay Bay site for 7 years. We completed a new waste transfer station in 2022. So this particular project consolidates all the remaining solid waste entities into one place. So I wanted to go over some of the characteristics of the site, if you could pull up that slide. Okay, first is a new 3-story operations building. It's about 50,000 square feet. We have a new 5-story, 500 parking garage, 500 car parking garage. A new entry guardhouse that'll help assist patrons where to go on site with navigating throughout the site, providing more efficiency and safety. We have 3 new scale facilities. Like Larry was saying, a new scale facility at the north side that'll help city trucks get to the waste-to-energy plant, and 2 new scale facilities where the current main entry is. So in the new entry, there are 2 scale houses. They each have 2 inbound, 2 outbound, and 1 hybrid scale that could be changed direction based on needs. We also have a new container maintenance facility, a truck wash facility, which is all automatic, unlike what you're doing now, manually cleaning the trucks. Should provide greater efficiency. A new fuel station on site with both gas and diesel. And then on the 34th Street, we're doing right-of-way improvements, which is very important for queuing into the site for safety and no road blockages. So that's going to be part of this job. And again, as Larry said, the standalone restroom, that's also important for safety. It's a safe place where people need to use the restroom for the public as well as the drivers. And then finally, a CNG fueling station. We're bringing over many of the components from Spruce Street, as well as bring in more components to service the bigger size for their fueling. Next slide. I want to talk just about some key elements. We've all experienced flooding recently. While we didn't know that when we were designing the project, we did take that into consideration. And right now, the FEMA base flood elevation is 12. All of our buildings are 13 to 16 feet above sea level. So we've already taken that into consideration in this project. The administration building, which also I understand could be used during events like this and hurricanes and things, is designed for 150 mile per hour, category 4 hurricane. Some sustainable features in our RFP are included in this job are solar panels on the administration building, as well as green building products throughout design selection, focusing on indoor air quality. We also have EV charging stations within the parking garage. And we're also utilizing reclaimed water, not only for irrigation, but for the truck wash facility. Jose?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jose Colmenero. I'm Director of Pre-Construction for Cocolacus. And I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the construction sequence that the way we put together the schedule for this project. And there were two major considerations that were taken in account when we developed the sequencing of the job. First and foremost is the maintaining a revenue stream at all times, which is the scale house. Now, being that we're going to be fully demoing the existing scale house and adding a brand new one basically on the same place, that created a major challenge on this project. Like Larry said earlier, the north scale house is being allocated for all of the city trucks to use, which relieves a lot of the traffic on the scale house. And basically, the way the sequencing is going to be, the other consideration that was taken is completion of at least the majority of the elements on this project before March 7th of 2027. So our biggest, our longest critical path building is the admin building. So that's basically the first building that we're going to be working on, along with the work that has to be done on 34th Street. That's going to be followed by the parking garage and the north scale house. While the north scale house is getting built, we're going to be doing a temporary scale house facility on the lower right corner of the CNG parking area, and we're going to create a bypass road so that we can keep revenue stream going throughout the project. That's going to allow us to demo the scale house A and B, which will become one of the biggest priorities in the project, so that we can get the scale house running again. So from the parking garage and the north scale house and the temporary scale house that we're going to be putting up, we're going to follow through with the container maintenance, truck wash, and follow through with the basically move to the scale house A and B as soon as the temporary scale house facility is up and running. And basically, we finished the project at the end with finalizing the site, as well as the CNG area, which is the tail end of the project. So, thanks.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. So as you heard and saw, we left no stone unturned. And going back to what Jose just mentioned, March 7th, 2027 was our date. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we'll be able to meet that. So there's a complete breakdown of when each building will be completed. The only items that will be left are the CNG stations, which we can work around. We have our internal operations, and there's external locations as well across the city, strategically placed. We'll start to break ground in January of 2027. So we'll have the mobilization, commencement in January 16th. However, we'll end up breaking ground at the end of January. But again, we meet our deadline. Now it's the moment of truth. So here is the rendering of the solid waste building, and this houses operations and, of course, admin as well. At our current location, we're separated. We have the admin build up front and then the operations building in the back, and I think that this will help create some more synergy within our department in its entirety. So to the right side, you can see that we were very rigid with the budget. So we went back and forth with value engineering, and we came to a stopping point with $107 million. Now, I do want to inform you, so the 30% is 129, and we ended up in total at 125. So there was really a cost saving of $4 million after we value engineered everything. And here's some examples to the bottom right corner. Aluminum mesh panels, we didn't need that. Some changes with the exterior metals and stucco, and both of those combined are over $2.3 million there.
They just couldn't throw those in there, huh, for us?
I wish they could, but it probably couldn't to their profit.
Understood.
So benefits, like I mentioned before, we want to round out with all the benefits, so we want to break it out as such. Benefit to the customers, the community, and the employees. So first and foremost, we'll have decreased wait times at the transfer station and scale house. We'll have decreased collection times because we can get those trucks off route faster. We'll have faster transactions at the scale house. Right now we have a dial-up setup, which takes time. It's like AOL. Moving forward, so now we have a centralized campus. It's all things one-stop shop, solid waste. And then we can branch into additional services and educational outreach opportunities. So we can give tours. Pinellas County gives a great tour and we want to mirror that so we can show what happens with the garbage from soup to nuts all the way through. Moving forward to the community, there's a benefit for the Carver City area. So there's 19 acres of viable land that can be further developed. We reduce the traffic congestion there, reduce the noise pollution there as well. We start our day, we arrive around 4 a.m. at times for certain portions of our divisions. So I know that they'll be happy to have that removed from our trucks barreling down the streets around 5 a.m. Moving forward, so we'll increase the fiber optics at this location over in the 34th Street location. And we're partnering with DeSoto Elementary, so the community. So we deliver presents there. We're always there for guiding, so great American teaching. In addition, we're helping them establish their garden as well. So we want to make sure that it's a benefit to everybody that's surrounding that area. Now the employees, and shout out to my team, great job during the storm collection. So we reduced the end of drive travel time. It's one thing. So that's a reduction in mental fatigue. So we reduced the wear and tear of the vehicles, like I mentioned before, the fuel usage as well, and of course we improve morale. Now that does conclude our presentation. Do you have any questions for us?
Councilmember Hurtak.
That was quick.
Thank you. We talked about this presentation, I don't know if anybody else has had the chance to ride in a garbage truck through this, but I have, and it is. They wouldn't let me stand on the back. I did that for yard trash, but they don't, you have to sign waivers and stuff, so. No, but going through, it's laborious, it takes time, and so I'm excited to see these changes because overall it's gonna improve everything. I did have a question about stormwater, or rather, storms that come in, and you let me know that even now, if there were a hurricane that were barreling toward this, even when it's been completed, that the trucks don't stay.
Yes. So we have a bug out plan, and we send our trucks to a school. So we partner with the schools that are northern, so north of Columbus, and then we identify one, and then we send them directly there. So we take all of our vehicles and relocate them.
Okay, so that was my concern looking at storm now. I'm really glad that the design was able to put that in mind even before, because we saw what happened with Palmetto Beach and the devastation, and we really want to make sure that the money we spend is money, is just going to be able to sustain this for many years to come. I'm going to reiterate this again because I talked to you about it privately, but I want to make sure I say it in person. Hanna Avenue staff lounges are amazing. They're phenomenal, and our staff deserves them. Our staff for solid waste deserves an amazing lounge as well. So I expect to see that in this, because it is really, they are some of the unsung heroes in our city, especially what they've been able to do in these last couple of months. So I just really want to make sure that we have that space, and that they really have a space to relax when they take time, when they're doing their lunch or when they're taking a break. So that's really important to me.
Yes.
And then the last thing is it would be really great, since you're doing all of this eco stuff, if you had, and you're gonna be doing tours, if you had like a small place for composting, or even one of those, like homemade biogas filters that we could use for people's lunches or whatever. So just kind of a few other things to think about when you have the space, because I think it's one of those things that, it's just, it all goes together, and I really appreciate the time and attention to detail that everybody spent on this, so thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, and I appreciate everything you said. It looks very, very amenable, very well planned out. However, when we look at 13 feet or 16 feet high for the storm surge, that's got to be a guesstimate, because the last 30 years, we have mistreated the environment more than we did in the last 150 years. So I don't know what to expect. When I saw 7 storms this year in the Gulf, I've been here my whole life, maybe 2 used to be in the Gulf, and it used to head west. Now, because of the winds, I guess, they're changing. They're coming where they want to get close to Tampa Bay. They want to see what the hell we've been doing here for so long. And they want to be part of us, which I don't want them here. But if that storm that just passed, the last one, would have been 20 miles this way, none of us would be here today. Because this downtown would have been underwater. Because this one took the water out. If it had been 20 miles this way, it would have brought the water in. So we're looking at something that I understand that maybe this is the best you can do, but we have to have more protection in the future, because we don't know what nature's going to do. We didn't think it was going to be as bad with this one. And we second guessed it and lost. And that's how these things are. But I would have to bet that since we haven't addressed nature in a while, it's not going to get any better, it's going to get worse. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Henderson, your mic was on.
Yes, sir, thank you. Well, Mr. Washington, thank you so much. Years of planning, you're finally here. January's around the corner. I really appreciate your report and the attention to detail. The benefits to the staff and the community are very impressive. I love that we're partnering with DeSoto Elementary, get them when they're young and very impressionable. The campus consolidation is definitely going to benefit the city. And, on a sidebar, leaving Carver City and Lincoln Gardens is, greatly appreciated. The city decided to put a solid waste facility at a jailhouse in a predominantly African-American community, and now there's 19 acres becoming available, and there's just a great opportunity there for us to do something amazing. So I'm excited about that part too. Cannot deny, but I do appreciate the work that's gone into this. Kudos to you and your team, and Kokolakis as well. Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin.
I just want to know how in the world you guys got this aggressive timeline, and can you all take over building a streetcar? Because
Can't speak for them.
that is, I know you can do just about anything. So I'm just very impressive that you've been able to put together this package and be able to accomplish what, your goals of being able to, bring it in at budget and be able to bring it in under this aggressive timeline is quite impressive. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Washington, for all your help, especially in the last month or two. Constituents appreciate it also, and you and your team, and some things are just miracles when folks come in and clean up stuff. You just people don't always realize until they don't have it how valuable the services are that you'll provide. Could you go back a couple slides? I talked to you about this when we talked yesterday or the day before, and this one. And I knew you didn't have time to fill it out, but I think and this is not on you, this is probably at the chief of staff level, but we need to make a better business case for why we need things like this. What's the total in capital that we're spending on the 2 projects?
On which 2 projects? So the relocation and the fleet building? 125 million, sir.
And then the building also? That includes the building, or
It
is
does,
that?
includes the building.
Okay, so then and as we talked about the other day, we're gonna have short-term debt, but then that's gonna probably flip to long-term debt, right? So that's gonna be double, so then it'll be, how much, 250 over 30 years?
It's 250 if we include of course, the retrofit as well. So 120, 130, 250.
Yeah, and then that will be doubled because it'll have interest, so that's gonna be 500, right? Mike's shaking his head, yes. So, anyway, anytime we bond something, we have to spend interest, and it happens that the interest rates right now are high, and at some point, we might be able to renegotiate them. But we're really talking about $500 million. And so, what I think we need to do, for the public's sake, is I think you're on the right track of having these benefits, but we need to figure out what the value is, what the dollar value is, the economic value of it, and not use multipliers and things like that. But we need to show the community why we're using limited resources. We think about that, especially at a time like now with inflation, where members of our community are suffering because of high costs of everything. There's a limit to how much we can charge them, either in fees or taxes. And if we assume that there is a limit, we have to figure out within that, what are the best things that we can spend money on. If we reduced our solid waste rate, we might be able to raise something else to balance, even though it's in an enterprise fund. So as we look at that, we need to be able to make a really strong case that because we're spending $500 million, in exchange, we're saving ideally $500 million or more. And the same kind of discussion we had on Hanna Avenue. And so I hope that we can figure that out in the future. On the building on Spruce, during the Hanna Avenue discussion, we were told that, and this is before some of my colleagues got on, but we were told that the sale of that property, and I won't say the number they were estimating, but the sale of that property would offset the cost of the $121 million. Originally it was 108 and 100 for Hanna Avenue. That didn't happen for several reasons, but when we sell the Spruce Street property, will that money be applied to this principal so we don't have to pay interest?
Mr. Rojero's coming up right now to speak towards that.
Good afternoon, Council. Dennis Rojero, Chief Financial Officer. The short answer, sir, is it could be. Once it is decided by the mayor and city council what to do with that particular property, and if the decision is made to sell that property, the property belongs to the general fund. So it can be theoretically used for just about anything. At the time it's sold and we can appropriate the revenues, then it'll be up to the mayor and city council as to what they appropriate that
All
for.
these new assets, are they owned by the general fund or by the enterprise fund?
Now, the new assets will be owned by the Solid Waste Department, the Enterprise Fund. We're financing them with solid waste.
So just from a standard accounting perspective, whether we sell it for $1 to help somebody or we sell it for a lot, would you recommend that money, it seems to me that even if it's not officially in an enterprise fund, if it's been used for a long time for an enterprise, that it would be applied there, don't you think?
It could easily be applied to it. What it will depend on, and I don't mean to be weaselly about it, but it'll depend on the priorities, both short, mid, and maybe long-term, that the mayor and council have at that time. For instance, and I'm not advocating this, if we just got hit by 2 hurricanes, for instance, it'll depend on the priorities of the administration and council at that particular time.
Because we know, in the short term, in the last few weeks, people have said, please clear the debris in front of my house. But beyond that, the biggest things that people are worried about are road repair, flooding, and affordable housing. And there are others, but those are the high priorities. And so when they see us building new buildings, even though it's value engineered, and thank you for doing that, and it's still a good-looking building, ultimately we're spending $500 million. And somebody will say, why aren't you spending any of that on road repair? And so I just think we need to really carefully present the economic case for what we're doing. In this case, I have the greatest respect for Mr. Washington and his team, but just because the business case is not fully fleshed out and I'm concerned about bonding, I'm going to vote no today, not because I don't disagree with it, but in the future, I think especially on huge, 500 million is, and that's not even including additional O&M, whatever the delta is on O&M. I think 500 million, we should have a really detailed economic case for why we're doing it, and be able to explain to the public why we're doing that. Thank you.
Councilmember. Yeah, you go.
Yes, sir. And just one tiny thing I wanted to say, of all good discussions, et cetera. One thing that Councilwoman Hurtak said that I really want to emphasize too is that the break room, that's, little things mean a lot, but especially for our solid waste and sanitation and other workers, having a statement like that people who go out there every day and work hard doing these tough jobs are gonna get first-class break rooms, that's a really good statement of dignity for workers, and so I think that's awesome. So I just wanted to commend you on that. I think that's a very nice Roosevelt-esque sentiment. Thank you.
Councilmember Miranda, do you want to go again? No, Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I kind of piggybacking on what Councilman Carlson said. Part of the reason why this project does make sense to me is because of the 19 acres and being able to parlay that as a cost offset. Now, I agree with the statement about the priorities at the time of what the mayor and the council, when this comes to pass. But knowing that potential is out there, it wouldn't necessarily have made sense to me to do this relocation without having that asset available to, whether it's paying for, whatever, turning around to private development, the amount of money that we're gonna get in taxes on the development of that property that'll be amortized over, unlimited amounts of time, and the actual cost of reimbursement of actually parlaying that property into the private developer's hands. It just makes sense to me, because again, that over a period of time is gonna pay down, whether we go into the enterprise fund or we use it to pave roads, or whatever political priority we have. It just, is subject to future discussions, but I just wanna go on record as saying that this makes sense to me, why I'm 100% supportive of it, as knowing that we're gonna have that opportunity to have this as an asset that's gonna be paying us back. Thank you.
And thank you for the presentation. I'm supporting it. In regards to those 19 acres within the Carver City Lincoln Gardens neighborhood, and this is another discussion, they're too valuable, in my opinion, to just let it go to a developer. I mean, it's a very special neighborhood. It's a historic neighborhood, and it's in the heart of the city. And you don't find 19 acres. That's non-existent. I mean, Midtown, which is not far away, took years and years and years to acquire everything together to create that. So 19 acres in the heart of the city, in the heart of the neighborhood, that's another discussion. There's a lot of opportunity. This is a great project. We discussed this. You gave me a presentation. If you want to name it the Larry Washington Executive Lounge,
I want to do that.
we're good. We're good with that. We're good with that. But no, thank you very much. If there's nothing further, who would like to move this resolution?
If I may, in fact, this land more likely going to need a lot of brownfield cleaning up.
It will.
And I want to make sure that, we do it right. I'm sure you all will.
Yes,
But
sir.
it's going to take some time to do all this. Thank you all very much.
Of course, it depends on the.
Can I just say one more thing on that?
Leave it.
Sure.
On the brownfield cleanup, especially if it's a high cost, I think whoever takes it over, especially if it's a developer, they should pay it, or they should understand that cost. But in terms of doing something like creating a park out of this, we have to think about it in the economic value. I don't know how much this is worth. I'll pick a high number. Let's say this property is worth $100 million, and it's not, but let's just say it's worth $100 million. We have to think about it as starting point, $100 million investment, and what we would, if we decided, for example, to make it a park, we need to figure out where are we going to get that money from the Parks Department to offset that, because we're not building $100 million parks anywhere else. So what is, I mean, we have parks all over the city there where everything is completely falling apart.
Carver City has a great park,
I-
2 blocks away.
And I'm not making an argument about whether it should be a park or not, but if we have to think of, if we decide to do that, if we decide not to sell it, because we've been promised at least once in the past that it would be sold and that the money would offset Hanna Avenue. If it's not gonna be sold, we need to think about the economic value of it, and that has to be included in the cost of the project.
And potential tax revenue received because of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valuable thing. Right now, we have something like $5 million a year to repair parks. The parks all over the city are falling apart. And, for example, we could sell that and put it into a park, or we could take part of it and make a park and sell the rest of it. With 19 acres, there's plenty of land. But we have to think about the value of that park, because that's an important asset. We should just not say, okay, it's empty land and we turn it over, especially if we're gonna spend several $1 million to fix the brownfield. Thank you.
All right, we have a, yes, ma'am.
We already did the second.
Oh, motion and a second, and yes, sir.
Justin Vasky, Legal Department. Just a reminder, this is a consideration. In 2 weeks, you'll do the approval. So I don't want you to approve it now. Thank you.
So, but we can move ahead with this resolution.
No.
No.
So no need to do any,
So we acknowledge your presentation.
Thank you, I
all
appreciate
right,
it.
good. All right, 72, Mr. O'Hara, talk about the financing.
My goodness, I think we just did that, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, I think my thunder's been stolen, and that's, and that's fine. Right, and that's fine. In contrast to the contract, however, council does have the option of approving this issuance today, not necessary for two separate meetings, just one motion. Again, I do think we've discussed it. Councilman Carlson summed up the total anticipated financial commitment. Of course, you saw Mr. Washington's presentation. Most of you have been briefed by both Director Washington and Budget Officer Mike Perry. Our financial advisor is also here today, so I think you have all the information you need, but I'm happy to expand or expound.
Well, I just have a question. Not that it really matters, but wouldn't it be more proper to just hold this until we approve the project rather than approve the funding before we approve the project?
That's council's discretion. We want to give you the
It just makes sense to me, but unless somebody else has a.
Yeah, why don't we just wait until the 19th and just do it all in one swoop? I mean, the support is there and the questions have been answered, so. All right. By unanimous consent, any objection to waiting until the 19th and we take it together? No? All right. By unanimous consent, we will,
We may have an earthquake between now and then.
no natural disasters. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, Council.
That's it. Thank you for coming. Item number 74, Adriana Colina, regarding Hanna City Center.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Council.
Yes, ma'am.
Adriana Colina, Director of Logistics and Asset Management for the City of Tampa. I submitted a memo outlining the specific questions that were asked regarding the current and future use of Hanna Avenue, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. I know that earlier, and I'm not seeing her now, Councilwoman Hurtak mentioned items 74's alignment with item 80, and I'm happy to talk to that too.
Councilmember Henderson, this was your motion. Did you want to kick it off?
I've already spoken to Ms. Colina. I am, satisfied with it. I know we've had public comments come before us, thinking that the building is completely empty and unutilized, and that is not the case. What appears to be one thing is something totally different. So I appreciate the conversation in the report. Future use is, I know, something that when we talked about it in terms of this facility is not our emergency management facility and was never intended to be that. And so that was a question of mine. You did answer it. And if it were, then additional cost factors would, come into play. And I know Councilman Carlson would not be interested in us spending more money at Hanna Street. So that's basically it. Thank you for your report on my end.
And I thank you so much for the opportunity to present this report, because you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, I have heard erroneous information being given and statements made. And when we did this report to you, we were able to actually quantify the square footage that is not being used, and it's merely 11%. So a little over 16,000 square feet of the building.
Yeah, and that was important to mention, because especially the public's perception and being transparent, because it, did come to us. So, it's important that we just knock things like that out. And if that were the case and it discovered that, we have too much space, then, it would give us an opportunity to look at, how to go about changing that. So it's a beautiful facility.
Yes, and honestly, it would be irresponsible for us if in only a year we would have already exceeded the space that we had. We had planned always for growth in the building, and we are intentional about the space that we have here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share the data and the facts on the building.
Councilmember Carlson, Councilmember Hurtak.
Ms. Colina, if a company rents, companies that are looking to expand, they'll often rent too much space, and then they'll use the part of it that they need. But cover the cost, they'll sublease the remainder. And so a lot of times the subleases are short-term leases, so they can get out of them. This Hanna Avenue has empty space, and the building that Mr. Washington just presented, I forgot the percentage, but I think something like 40% of that is going to be empty. I don't know if you're overseeing that too, but are we, or is it possible to sublease or have short-term leases to try to cover some of the operating and capital costs on these buildings?
Great question. To answer, I am not involved in the oversight of the space at the solid waste site. That's an enterprise fund, and they manage that. But in the case of Hanna, Councilman Carlson, the spaces that I'm referring to right now that are vacant are actually not completely built out. If you'll recall, when we presented Hanna to council, it was always intended to be a workforce development space, and it was going to be completed by the bidder that wins, whoever wins the RFQ. A couple of RFQs, one is actually going to be going out any day, and that's for the technology and arts space. And the other was always envisioned to be a culinary space and cafe. And that particular RFQ, as I mentioned in the memo, did go out. We only received one bidder who did not completely respond to the bid, so therefore it was an unresponsive bidder. And that RFQ is going to be going out again in 2025, early 2025. So we are unable to rent that space right now because it is not completed.
So what happens, again, start using private sector comparison, is if there is space like that that's not built out, the owner of the building typically will build it out to some kind of spec for the organization leasing it, and then they'll charge the rent plus the build out costs, usually added on as kind of debt. Is there any opportunity like that? I'm just trying to figure out how we can reduce the cost of this going forward.
Yes, sir. So that opportunity does exist, and that is part of the RFQ, the RFQs that I mentioned that will be going out.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurtak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I've been to Hanna Avenue many times. It's a beautiful building, but it does have the feeling of emptiness. It just does. And once I combined the item number, I believe it's 80, which is the amount of money that we're spending per month on the GTE building, which is, Ms. Pointer did a great job of adding, so I didn't have to, $68,556 a month, which I extrapolated, I was able to do the multiplication, to about over $800,000 a year. And that's just unacceptable to me for 40 people. It doesn't make any sense. So I personally don't think that we should approve any more of these leases for the GTE space and simply find space for them at Hanna. And I understand the way that you wanted to use Hanna, but 41 people, which is it's about $20,000 per person for the whole year for the GTE building. And that is not a good use of government money. It just simply isn't. And so having people kind of have to move around a little bit and reconsider how we use space at Hanna would be something that I would be in support of, but I will never again approve a GTE lease because it's just not a good use of our taxpayer dollars. So I would love to hear about ways that we could move these 41 City of Tampa employees, because quite a few of these are actually temporary relocations. And I understand that quite a few of these leases are up. We have a lease up in March of next year, of October of next year. And as those leases go off, that we should quite frankly stop paying for them and find space for them in Hanna, and if that means not having the economic development piece or the training piece there, and instead, quite frankly, I don't understand why we're taking on training. Why? I mean, we do a really good job of outsourcing the housing training to people who focus on housing. We are just a pass through for that. We send people to the Salitas house, to other why are we trying to do job skills training in the city of Tampa. That is not our expertise. We should be encouraging people to go elsewhere for that. That just does not seem like a good use of the space for the city of Tampa. And I understand that might have been something that was talked about when this building was developed, but we have a new council and we have a new, I just don't see that as being a good use of space and money.
So, thank you. I want to tell you, everything isn't always as it seems. And as you mentioned, there's a feeling of emptiness when you come to Hanna. And I would suspect that's when you're only on the first floor, because that's where the emptiness exists. And it is that workforce development space. And that workforce development space wasn't simply a want, but it was a commitment that was made. It's one of the mayor's key initiatives. And it was a commitment that was made when the building was being designed. It was made to the neighborhoods, and it was very well received. And the council at that time, and many of you talked about the importance of apprenticeship programs and workforce development. And so that's where that was. Now, I understand completely what you're saying about the leases at GTE, but it's really not apples to apples. So to move that staff over here, there will be costs associated with completing the build out of that space. Furniture, cubicle, all of that. So that will be a cost, a significant cost, which will be a change, or not a change order, but an addition to spend at Hanna. And then secondly, a big part of that is the EOC. And that brings a completely different set of building improvements and generator, et cetera, and cost to harden this space. So it's not there yet. That's not to say that that might not be in the future, being honest, or moving staff. But right now, the reality is there will be significant costs to move any of that to this facility, and there will be time, because there will be construction time and build out. And you rightly mentioned a lot of the staff that is at GTE, the employees, are temporary, and those are water department staff. And as you know, there are construction improvements going on at the Tippin plant, and that's where the bulk of them are from too.
And I appreciate that, but I remember even before joining council, when I was just a neighborhood leader, going and learning about this Hanna, and one of the things that the neighborhood wanted to make sure, and I remember this at the time, is that this was this was sold to us as a hurricane-rated building that we could be used for an EOC. And we were told, I might have been you, might have been Brad, that said that it ended up being too expensive to put a generator there. But for $800,000 for 2 or 3 years, I mean, that pays for that, and that pays for some build out. Quite frankly, those community rooms are great, and they could fit 200 people. Between that and the outside space, we could make it work, because that's kind of what you do for an emergency. You make it work. And I, again, really believe that Hanna Avenue needs to punch above its weight because of the added expense that was spent on this building, and now we own it. And now we need to be able to cut costs elsewhere in order to maximize the use and the money of the building. And I have been on the 2nd and 3rd floors, and again, it's lovely, but there's still a lot of room to be had, quite frankly, and I think we could really make it work. Like I said, I know that might not have been the goal initially, but now as we are, technically we have a lot of money, but we don't. We're getting squeezed. We really need to think about the future and how we spend money. And $69,000 a month to house 41 people is unacceptable going forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Clinton.
Well, it's 41 full-time, and then of course up to 200 in times of emergencies and training, which is sporadic. But I just want a point of clarification. Hanna was designed and built as a COOP site for hurricane, not as EOC, and there is a difference. And when this building was being designed, of course, we value engineered a lot to not increase, to reduce costs. And we have life safety generator capability here on site, but not operating the complete building on generators, because that was value engineered. So that speaks to the cost that I mentioned about this becoming an EOC. Not to say that it's not doable. It is doable, but there will be costs associated with it.
Thanks.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect, Councilman Hurtak, but I think it's premature jumping to those conclusions. I think what you have to have when you're doing these types of analysis, you have to do a cost benefit analysis of what the actual cost would be, what the benefit. I mean, it's an entire study making that determination of whether it is beneficial for the mission of the city of Tampa and also the taxpayers of the city of Tampa, utilizing one facility over the other, what the short-term cost of relocation, long-term cost of relocation, you know, I mean, loss of productivity. I mean, there's a lot of things in there. So I think if you want to pursue this type of an agenda.
That's why people hate government.
Well, no, this is a business. This is a business model. This isn't a government model. But if you were a business, this is what you would do, because you do that cost benefit analysis before you jumped in there. So I think would be if there was a political agenda here to wanting to pursue this, I think that we would want to have staff do a cost benefit analysis on, you know, what this looks like, how this looks as far as retaining the GTE property versus moving it, and maybe this is even too limited of a scope of how we're looking at it. But you know, and maybe it's an assessment of multiple properties that the city of Tampa owns. You know, we're sitting here talking about all these other things. You know, we've talked about that Howard piece of property. We talk about what's happening in Carver City. You know, there's a lot of assets. How we divvy up those assets is a much bigger discussion.
This is not an asset of ours, though.
Well, it is. It's not owned by us, but it is our asset because we have a lease on it. So it's part of our business model. It's part of our services that we provide to the citizens of the city of Tampa. So I would suggest, if you wanted to pursue this, is to come back with council and ask for a cost benefit analysis of these properties and what it would actually cost the taxpayer to do what you're looking to do.
Can I have a question about the GT building, because I spent some time over there when we had our hurricanes. And it's not just, isn't it the building itself that provides this level of not just security? I mean, it's a secure building, but it provides for all of our services, because a bank is located there. It's hard. That would be the word. Okay, okay, Clendenin, hardened, and you know, it was kind of retrofitted for survival. It is our emergency center. So we have to look at it from that perspective. It's like we use it when we really need it. It's one of those, and it just happens to be a lease. But I understand, you know, it's the thing that you have to bet on, and a place that you can go that you know is for sure. Because it definitely held up during the hurricane, you know, and it's on the top floor and it's safe, and all of our staff is there from different departments.
But it's like a cafetorium.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need things that are multi-use. Have you been to the community space at Hanna? It's really big.
Yeah. They had the model there for Fair Oaks. When I went to look at it, that's where they stored it for a little while. But I don't know. I just think, what did we do before GTE when we had, you know, hurricanes and emergencies and the staff were together? Because I was surprised they actually lived there. Yeah. So what did they do before GTE? Because Hanna didn't exist.
But that was what they told the community. That's why they put showers in there on the first floor.
Yeah.
Was for emergency usage. This is what they told the community at the time, before I was on council. And that's why when you go to the bathroom on the community center, there's a shower in there. That's why.
Well, and the other part of that,
couple
yes,
showers.
it was mentioned as a coop site. It was mentioned as a coop site, and it is a coop site. So yes.
Because they
if
did
staff
use
needed
that
to
too.
stay here and work, correct.
Okay.
And the other part of it was, we always encourage multiple transportation options. Staff could walk to work, they could bike to work, the showers or do it after. So, and the showers were forward thinking. Should this be a coop site long-term, you can do that. So this building was designed not just for 2023, it's moving forward. And those were things that needed to have been factored in. And Councilwoman Henderson brought up a great point when she talked about the security at the GTE facility. We don't have a fencing or a wall all around Hanna. because Hanna is open. You know, it is for the public, it is for everyone. Should this become an EOC, we do have to harden it and we do have to secure the perimeter. That's part of that emergency EOC criteria. So all of that would factor into the cost as well.
Yeah, and I discovered that we use it for the Super Bowl and Gasparilla. It's not just during hurricanes, and it's other
And when
things too. It's a
emergen-
command center for
Yeah, when
quite a few things.
emergencies arise, you need to be able to act swiftly. And so a big part of what is at the GTE right now is our T&I, data center backup, because we need to be able to operate out of there quickly, right? We did hurricane 2-3 days out, we need to be able to start. So that's also space that's there. Again, moving forward, things could be differently, but right now, that is what the city needs to be able to operate both in emergency times and now temporarily while the water department is undergoing significant construction.
Yes, Councilmember Hurtak.
I cannot imagine why this wasn't considered when Hanna was developed, because we are going to, it's not just this 800,000, and thank you for reminding me, like, they have to bring in a shower truck. They have to rent all of this stuff. Whereas if we had built it in, I'm just really I mean, Hanna overall, I mean, it's a lovely building, but the design of it is just, it's disappointing that we weren't able to fit more things in it, because we're spending all this money, and it, quite frankly, for a $220 million building, it should be able to do all these things, and it really can't. And that's
It was
wildly
money.
frustrating.
It was money, because they basically, they got what they got for the dollar they got. If they added this stuff, it would just actually cost that much more.
But, you know, we at least were building it at the time.
Yeah.
Like, because now we don't have anywhere to put this. We'd have to rebuild an EOC. This is,
Nothing's free. You gotta pay for everything you put in it.
yeah, but that's why I think it's an incredible waste of money, and I won't vote for it again. And I think Hanna overall just could have been designed with more space and less open space. And I think that really is what is needed, and it's frustrating.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think in 2015 or 16, I wasn't here yet, but I think somebody said, we just need a building. And Ms. Kalina's staff and everyone did a great job designing within that framework, but it seems like the goal is to build a building rather than to bring everybody together. Like one of the complaints I get from staff, the way it was sold is that there would be more collaboration, and I hear complaints from staff that you have to have access control, and it's not as easy to network as it should be. But back to the thing Councilmember Clendenin said about cost benefit. It's the same thing I was saying on the solid waste buildings. We need to come up, we city council, and maybe our financial advisor can help us, but we need a model for cost benefit, or what Chief of Staff and I call the business plan or business model for something. And in the case of, and we need to do that with that GDE building, but in the case of Hanna Avenue, it took us 2 or 3 years to get the numbers, but we finally figured out that the rent that was being paid for the people who eventually went to Hanna Avenue, and maybe more have come since this number, but it was $500,000 a year. And the argument was they were in 20 different places, and they were old leases, and the buildings were falling apart, and so it didn't make sense to continue that. But if you just said, okay, well, let's double it, triple it, quadruple it, that's $2 million a year. If you include the capital expense for Hanna, the O&M over 30 years, and the interest over 30 years, it's $7.5 million a year. And so we're, to Councilmember Hurtak's point, we're spending $7 million or more a year than we were before. And the point is that we need, I'm agreeing with Councilmember Clendenin, we need a cost-benefit analysis model on all of these investments. Why are we going to invest $500 million in these solid waste facilities? We know in the case of the waste-to-energy plant, we had to do it because it's going to fall apart. Building a new solid waste building, what's the economic case for it? What's the business case for it? What's the cost-benefit analysis? I think we have to be able to show that to the public, even if it's in an enterprise. And I don't know if our financial advisor can help us, but maybe, not now, but maybe we can each meet with her individually and talk about what we mean. But if you're renting a house and I'm gonna make up a number, but let's say your rent's expensive now, so let's say you're paying $3,000 a month, and then somebody says, I wanna sell you a house, and guess what? The principal is only $800 a month. You'll say, well, I can save $2,200. No, because you have to pay principal, interest, you have to pay taxes, insurance, and you also have to put a fund for repairs. And so what on the surface might look like you're saving money, if you really add everything up, you might be spending more. And in this city, until Hanna Avenue, we never really did that. We never really added up the total cost to compare. And we need to figure out how to create an economic model for some of the softer benefits, like the morale, and maybe measure that employee retention or whatever it is. But there are economic numbers that we can create to model it, and we can work with USF to do it. Thank you.
No, Councilmember Miranda, then Clendenin.
Wow, I hope I didn't use that when I got married. So you get married and you buy a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. You should have bought a house with 1 bedroom. That way you didn't have to spend for the other 2 bedrooms. But if you had kids, later on you're in big trouble. Anything you look at is relevant, because if you buy something today and it's not quite completed what you wanted, but it's there, and it's already there. So in 5 years from now, we're talking about $7 billion a year. I guarantee you that the cost of materials and costs and labor will super exceed what we're spending now, or right at it. I'm not here to praise the administration or argue with my colleagues. A fact of life is you build something that you have more room than what you need, so you don't have to rebuild it again. Okay? That's how I think. And the trust that I manage, which I'm going to sell all of it, and I don't want a penny out of nothing.
I'll take it.
Right now?
I'll take it.
You got it then.
Okay.
Councilman Clendenin.
Yeah, this is good discussion. So, I know we're kind of going down the rabbit hole, but I think this is, as far as us having an opportunity to have these kind of discussions, and I find it promising, because I do believe this is the way the council should be conducting business as far as doing this cost-benefit analysis and looking at these things. Maybe it's something that hasn't been done in the past as thoroughly as maybe it should have been. The irony to that, harkening back to the previous discussion about solid waste, I don't know, maybe in my discussions leading up to today's presentation, I kind of had those kind of facts and figures, and again, looking at, that's why I want to make sure this council realizes that, look, it's only because of those 19 acres of being able to monetize that, being able to get that back onto the private tax rolls and make it taxable property, that makes this whole thing kind of make sense. Because without that, it doesn't make sense. There's no, I couldn't see a business model for relocating, but with having access to those 19 acres and being able to redevelop that and transfer that property, it makes sense. So I think all of these things, you know, again, good discussion. I think that, and I think Councilman Miranda was correct when it goes to, you know, how we build. I bet you everybody up here wishes when those interest rates were low on that bond, that we had bonded everything and the world, but we didn't bond enough at like almost free money, because we could have built a whole new stadium.
I see your house.
I know Charlie did not appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you so much. All right, we'll go to item 76. It's a 5-minute report regarding parking compliance in Ybor City. Hello.
Good afternoon. I believe Eric Cotton, Dennis Fernandez, and Keith O'Connor are online to provide an update.
1, 2, 3.
And Captain College is here in council.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Cotton, kick it off.
Good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. I'm here with Dennis Fernandez, Manager for Historic Preservation, and Keith O'Connor, Director of Code Enforcement. We're just to report on the progress
Wait,
being
Mr.
made
Cotton, just a
for-
moment. Can we get the volume up? We can't hear him very well.
I apologize.
It's not you.
It's not you.
us.
We had a hard time hearing Miss Kalina too.
Want me to try again? Is that better?
Great. That's great.
All right. Again, Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. I'm here with Dennis Fernandez, Manager of Historic Preservation, and Keith O'Connor, Director of Neighborhood Enhancement, also known as Code Enforcement. Here to report on the Ybor parking updates. This is our bi-monthly report. I'm going to turn it over to Dennis. Dennis and Keith both have numbers of cases that are being reviewed and cases that are going through code enforcement and such. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of them.
Thanks, Eric. This is Keith O'Connor, Director of Neighborhood Enhancement, and we'd like to share Dennis's screen if we could, so you guys can see these data slides. And can you see them?
No.
No.
That's him.
There it is. Okay.
Go to the next one.
It should be able to see it.
Yeah, go to the next slide. Can you go to the next one?
There it is.
Okay, this first slide is going to discusses the Ybor City parking lot security. As you know, October 15th, the language in the code changed from lot attendant to lot security, visible and on site for the duration from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we started doing inspections after October 15th, along with TPD. And as of right now, we have 46 cases open with violations of the code. 34 of these were investigated by code enforcement. 12 of them were investigated, inspected by TPD. All of the notices have been sent out to the property owners, and all 46 have been scheduled to a hearing. We have 2 hearing dates. One is January 26th with 24 cases, and one January 29th with 22 cases. That'll take up the whole hearing for those cases, and then we'll know then, once it's heard before the magistrate, what the fines if they find them in violation. So that's my portion of it. If you have any questions for me about the parking lot enforcement.
Councilmember Carlson had his microphone on first with a close second by Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you, Keith. I want to say first, thank you to Keith. All the staff have been great during the last couple months, but there have been a few really complicated code enforcement issues, and Keith has personally responded to go meet with constituents to walk through them, and the constituents are very appreciative, especially during these times when they're feeling so much other hurt. Do you know? Is there a correlation yet, or is there any data yet to look at the crime rate in Ybor and or the parking lots since this new rule went into effect and since you're enforcing it? Is there any correlation there?
Not that I'm aware of, but I do understand that Captain Dan College is in there. He may be able to speak to that, but I'm not aware of any.
He's walking up, I think.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Thank you, sir.
Dan College, Captain, Tampa Police Department. I don't have hard figures for you regarding the parking lots, but from memory and reports that we receive every Saturday and Sunday morning, we haven't had any incidents in the parking lots.
So there's been a dramatic decrease, is that?
Well, it's been since October of '23. We've had a continued presence in the parking lots since then. So
okay.
It's really hard to compare. We'd have to reach back to 22 and early 2023.
Yeah, any data you have like that would be great, because I know the neighborhoods there would like to know it, and the businesses, so thank you very much.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you so much for this. I know that it will take a while to get things going, so I appreciate your effort with this. My only question is the January hearings, when are those held? What time and where? So if the public was interested, where are those hearings held?
Okay, the hearings are held here at the Hanna City Center in the community center downstairs. Remember, we moved code board here, so that's been going great in this building. January 22nd and 29th, we have code hearings in the morning at 9 and in the afternoon at 1. I think January 22nd, I don't know which is which. One is a 9 a.m. and one is a 1 p.m. They're scheduled for 3 hours, and these cases do take some time to hear, so that's the maximum we're putting on is about 20.
Okay, thank you. I knew that you all had moved these hearings, and I just wanted to make sure the public was aware that they're now at Hanna City Center if they wanted to check them out. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate this report.
Thank you very much. Next up is item number 77.
We'll stop that.
Good afternoon, Abby Philly. Oh, Dennis had, Dennis, did you want to finish your numbers?
Oh,
Sure, I
I'm
can
sorry
add,
about
I
that.
can add the slide if they'd like to see that. Oh,
Been waiting all day for that.
all day, all day. No, all right.
can you
let's
see
make
the
that
screen
bigger.
now?
Almost there. They're gonna make it bigger for us real quick. There we go. All right, go ahead, sir. We can see a certificate of appropriateness compliance.
Correct. Good afternoon, Council. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just briefly, the other caveat of the enforcement process does deal with the layout and configuration of the lots and how those are being approved and then enforced to be maintained in the way that they were improved. So Keith and I have been collaborating quite a bit along with Eric on these cases. Just as a recap, in addition to the security aspect, code enforcement has been working with us to enforce the parameters of review and approval for the configurations of the lot. We began with 24 cases back in April, which were brought to the magistrate. By the time we got to the actual hearing, 4 of those had complied out, so there was only 20 that were actually heard in July. 4 were dismissed during the hearing, basically because the owners agreed either not to utilize them as parking lots or to comply with the parameters of 2078 or 27-178 that they were in violation for. 16 lots were found to be in violation of the code section. Since then, we've been working with those 16 lot owners to bring those properties into compliance. 8 lots have been issued a certificate of appropriateness and been inspected, so those violations have been complied out. 5 lots are currently in the process of moving towards that conclusion. 3 lots have not yet applied for the certificate of appropriateness. So by February 5th, if these lots have not complied, there is a fine that's pending to encourage that compliance. That is my portion of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Ms. Feely, item 77.
One quick question. I know you just had the discussion on Hanna and the GTE kind of simultaneously, but the GTE leases were item number 80. Eric Hayden has been on the line for that if there was going to be a direct conversation, or Michelle is here, but if you're done with that today, then I'd like to let Michelle go. I just didn't know if we were going to come back to 80 again.
We can't because it is a written report, so I
Okay.
just wanted to have the data from that report. I apologize, I should not have said that we didn't need staff, I just wanted the data, so that's
Okay.
on me, I
Okay.
apologize.
That's okay. Thank you, Michelle. Item 77, I just wanted to give a quick update on the land development code, and also I did file a presentation or a document that was done by the planning department and Bloomberg on the waivers. It was done a while ago, back in 2023, but it does have the top 10 waiver sections and then some additional research on it. I was gonna give just the slide with the waiver sections, but I gave the whole presentation. So I did provide that. And coming up on the land development code, the assessment's gonna go to the public in just a few weeks. To the advisory team. The advisory team is having a meeting next Friday morning at Hanna. That meeting has been noticed for the public, and the public is invited to come. And that will be at 9 o'clock, December 13th at Hanna. Our next public meeting is going to be February 4th at Hanna. And that will be the same as we did last time, 7 o'clock. Doors will open at 6:30. And that will be for Clarion to present the assessment to the public with any comments and have come in. Once it's available to the public early January, we will post on our website. The website has been updated to ensure we're updating on a regular basis. I did see a correspondence, it may have been from Ms. Sanchez, in relation to us not having communication about the code. When we did the first public kickoff, we did identify a number of touch points where we would be coming forward for public engagement on the code process. There are several times in this code update where there are large spanses of time that work is getting done, and there is not an immediate communication going on. But we did identify those touch points, and we are on target with those. So also, we do have an email address for the Tampa Forward if anyone does have questions or need other communication, but the website's being kept up, and that is all forthcoming. So just a quick update on that, and then that the waiver document was provided.
Council member, anybody? Hurtak.
I'll just say thank you so much for the presentation, and I know that people are looking forward to it. I look forward to hearing what, how that first meeting goes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much. Last item of the day. Yes,
And
ma'am.
I also just want to say thank you for the waiver, the extra waivers stuff. So this was very useful. Thank you.
All right, item number 78, there was a memo. Councilmember Henderson, this was your motion?
Yes. I did receive the memo, and, I was kind of taken back by it because it came back. When we presented it in October, I thought it was because we didn't have enough time. I wanted it to come back in 2 weeks. That was rushed. So now it's been 2 months, and it comes back and it says that staff does not support the request to consider large-scale signs. And so, for me, just, grappling my head with this and understanding that the code belongs to us. That's our responsibility. And the motion was to bring back an amendment to the sign code. Oh, well, at least it was on. It was on. And so, that's what I want. And so we already have the motion in place for that to take place. Now, what's interesting is that staff is allowed to express how they feel, but because it's a legislative matter, the code can be done, and we're in an editing cycle, and that's what I want. So I don't know if we need to put a time certain date on it so that it can happen, even though the administration doesn't necessarily support it. One of the things, I had to do a little homework here, I was driving during the holiday week. I got on the crosstown and I was exiting. I saw the Amelie Arena big digital sign, and did a couple of digging. I was able to talk to Mark Pitts. He was responsible for that project when he was with the Bennett Group. And that sign, the same reasons why they're saying they can't do it for us, they did it for the Bennett Group, even though it may be a government building, what have you, whatever. I read Eric Cotman's letter of support, letter as well as Bennett support, and the verbiage is exactly the same. So in other words, they used the language of the actual person who wanted the sign code to build out the design exception, and they actually got it. And what was really interesting is it happened pretty fast. It happened in a very short period of time. And so we've been waiting 2 months, and it's come back where it said that the staff doesn't support this request. So I talked to the mayor, and I've talked to Abby. Yes, of course, a person did approach me, and I do like the idea. But there are other cities that justify that now is the time. We have not had an update in 16 years. So if not now, when? This is the opportunity, and because it's a legislative matter, that's why I asked that question earlier about, well, who does the deputy administrator work for? She works for the mayor, and so when it comes to legislative matters, that's under our ownership, and so we do have to ask staff for it. I don't know if it needs to be a workshop but it needs to come back as an edit. And now what I need from you all is additional support to make it time certain so that it can happen.
Councilmember Condon.
So Councilwoman Henderson, I thank you for this, and I was the second to this motion originally. So what I would suggest is on January 28th, we have a workshop on the Land Development Code.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that staff include the request for conceptual language that would include large format media in the Central Business District on a limited basis, together with the current amendments being brought forth to the January 28th, 2025 council workshop. I mean, you were correct in pointing out that it has been since October 3rd that I've been kicking this around. I believe there's been plenty of time, and again, this is a unique opportunity that we're in the process of doing this LDC rewrite, and I think it would be prudent to have that back.
And also, what it does is because because there's the administration feels one way and we feel another way, because I did get those votes, and maybe it was a courtesy, because that's what happens up here. I'm learning that. But the great part about it is Visit Tampa Bay supports it, the Downtown Partnership supports it, the Tampa Arts Alliance. You know, there are people who are waiting for this, and it can be done, just like the cost benefit analysis. We need to take the time to make sure we're getting it right. I'm not trying to light us up like, you know, Las Vegas or New York City, but there is an opportunity here. And when I was just leaving Orlando from the Florida Classic, I saw this beautiful digital display. There's just an opportunity. So, thank you.
No,
I second the motion.
Yeah, I agree, this is a great opportunity. I think, because it's not just, I think there's placemaking involved, there's all kinds of interesting concepts that,
Yeah.
as we look at this.
And you know, some of the recommendations too is we utilize our partners, like the Downtown Partnership. They can be you know, they can oversee the applications and say, hey, this is, you know, this is what works, because it is in the central business district. I call it.
Motion and second, we have Councilmember.
So,
Councilmember Carlson, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say, and I know this is embedded in the motion, but for anybody watching, this means we can also regulate them. So if they're done on an ad hoc basis, if instead of having them be done on an ad hoc basis, we can regulate what they'll do. I have friends who live across from the one that you mentioned, and they complain about the brightness at all and the hours of operation. And so those are two things that we can regulate in here, so that if it doesn't have to be full brightness all night long, we can say it has to turn off at a certain time or dim at a certain time.
And we could generate money off of our parking garages.
Yes, Mr. Shelby.
Clarification, excuse me, clarification for the maker of the motion. Is this then the motion to return with a draft for consideration?
yes.
That is so to continue that is
At
to
the
the workshop.
Development code workshop.
Yes.
Okay, but it's to return with a draft for consideration. is
Yes.
that-
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Conceptual language.
We have a
what I
motion and
said.
a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. That concludes our agenda. Ms. Feely, I hope after you get sworn in, you'll go and celebrate.
Absolutely.
We can't tell you what to do, but we highly recommend it.
Thank you.
All right, we go to new business, but I gotta go.
You gotta go? Okay.
Yeah, but no, Councilmember Miranda.
Miranda?
I'll take care of it.
Councilman Vieira?
Few scheduling things. I wanted to point out, many of us remember a young man named Javier Bowie, who was murdered over off of Bush in Rome. He was a 14-year-old young man. I'd spoken to his grandfather, who, as I recall, lives in California. Michael Baldwin Sr. is a very nice guy. Talked about the late Javier. He wanted to be a welder when he got older, but apparently TPD has arrested somebody and is charging them with the murder of Javier Bowie, so that's good. So I hope that, you know, the family, they're very good people, get some measure of peace in the middle of this hell for them. So just wanted to say that. And actually make some room on agendas. On December 19th of 2024, I had an agenda item there regarding WMBE and SLBE certified contractors, and being requested to move this to March 6th of 2025, if I may.
We have a motion, Councilmember Vieira, second Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Then also, Mobility was going to report in person on December 19th with former Tampa police officer Lisa Bunn on a school zone in front of Pepin Academies. And the good thing is they're making great progress, but they need some more time. So they requested to that be pushed to February 20th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Then what I give, you can take away, which is I was requested by Chief Burkaw to come and give a presentation on red light camera program report under staff reports for December 19th, the regular council session.
We have a motion. Yes.
I would, I've already spoken to Chief Burkaw about this, but there's the huge problem of blocking intersections. And I've spoken to him about this, and I would love it if that could be part of his presentation.
Yes, ma'am,
to
please.
talk
Yeah.
about blocking the box and
Yes,
what we
ma'am.
can do.
Absolutely, yep,
There
that'll
are
be,
signs in New York City that say, "Don't block the bus."
yes, I incorporate
All
it.
right, we have
yeah.
a motion,
Yeah.
motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I think Charlie was.
And also on December 19th, I've been working very close with FEMA on a number of issues. in North Tampa, and in speaking with them, they've, as I think we all are aware, in January, we have the cutoff for FEMA applications, and so they wanted to come to City Council for a very brief presentation, just to make the public aware of that. Should be 5 or 10 minutes. So motion for FEMA to provide a presentation to Tampa City Council on the status of hurricane recovery and assistance efforts at the December 19th meeting.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And then something that's actually come up in talking about storms is that you have a lot of inspection and re-inspection fees from people in the city, which is, you know, people who have lost their homes, many in Zone X, many don't have flood insurance. They're waiting on partial assistance from FEMA. And then we're charging them inspection and re-inspection fees. I wanted just a written report on motion for staff to report on the possibility of waiving inspection or re-inspection fees for those with flood damage on December 19th. Again, writing is fine, and all I want is an answer.
Wholeheartedly, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Shelby.
Just an awareness that the time for them to submit that is a very narrow time.
Tomorrow.
Okay, then you know what? I'll do then January 9th. That was my backup. January 9th, yeah. Right.
That's one thing, Councilman Bureau, I think that the city needs to do everything, that's what the city should do everything it can to facilitate and make it easier for people to rebuild what they have.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and when I talk about things involving assistance, it could be rental assistance, mortgage assistance, et cetera. Like I always talk about with FEMA, if you want a suit, FEMA will get you, you know, a tie, a shirt, a belt, shoes, you gotta buy the rest. So, in other words, there's gonna be a lot of issues there. But yeah, this is, again, I'm just trying to use every avenue that I can to help people. This is something small, but it's important. And hopefully, by the way, we can have an answer before that.
Well,
so that
I love the
people-
fact that we're waiving permit fees. for
Oh,
people
yeah,
to
well,
use it.
I hope we are.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Additionally, though, I think that this is the time, I would actually like to have a verbal report on this, only
Let's do it.
because
I'm down.
the reason, one of the things that Fort Myers really struggled with was they didn't do permitting at all. And now now some of those folks can't get insurance.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I think, and there was a lot of anger on social media about making us have people get permits. Well,
Yeah.
we're doing it for people's good, so that they can be made whole.
Yeah, right.
And I think we need both FEMA and during that presentation to be able to reiterate that fact that we want to provide free permits, but you got to get the permits,
Yeah.
otherwise you're not going to get insurance. And
Yeah.
I mean, the stories coming out of Fort Myers are heartbreaking.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. Yeah, Lee County, it's terrible.
Unintended consequences.
Terrible out there. So tell you what. So what I'll do is I'll motion it for January 9th in person. However, so this motion will be two-part, which is number one, to have them come January 9th. Number two, as the sentiment of this council, tell me if you all agree that we should waive these and we'd like this to take place as soon as possible.
100%.
And if it's done, then guess what? You don't have to come January 9th. So that's my motion.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, ma'am?
Just to know, right now you have 6 noted on the calendar, but I believe you have at least 3 or 4 that was continued to January 9th today, so I don't know if you all wanna look at the
I'll
calendar.
clean it up. I probably have one. I'll look at it. Thank you. And you'll have my word on that. Then
I
the
don't
la-
even have to look, and I know you've got
Wait.
some.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes?
And then last one is I was requested to do a commendation to the Regani School of the Fine Arts, a classical Indian dance school, for their performance at Carnegie Hall off premises.
We have a motion and a second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, council.
All right.
Councilwoman Henderson.
Thank you. Okay, so Hager, this is for you. I want the budget analyst to work with purchasing on a written report of RFPs sitting in their queue. I think that's how I want to say it, by department. Anything sitting in purchasing that's waiting to happen.
If you have questions, go to the
A
podium.
detailed spreadsheet, Hager, you can decide how that best will serve us. I actually want it in a written report by January 23rd, by department. Because when I ask about things, that's where it is. And it's like, why is it still there? I want to know, you know, how does it get out of there? And maybe there's something we can discover that we need to put in place that they can only sit there for so long. You know what I'm saying? So by department, in a spreadsheet, from the time that they've received them from the department and when they're going out. So, you know, however you decide that works, and if you want to talk about it more, but I think that's basically it.
I don't believe
Can
that, I don't believe that requires a motion since,
A written report?
well, she reports to
You say it's
us.
coming back.
I said January 23rd.
Or she reports to us, so it's.
But the thing is, that puts it on
No,
the
but
agenda.
Hager, but she has to work with another staff member
Okay.
that reports to the
Okay.
mayor.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
I'm learning, but.
We have a motion, we have a motion from Councilwoman Henderson, we have order. We have, we have a motion from Councilwoman Henderson, a second from Councilwoman
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, you know,
Hurtak.
who's in charge around here, you know?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Ayes
and the
have it.
other one really is, I know staff listens to us, so this is really an announcement. Walton Academy flooded, the entire school flooded, and I am going to go there on December 18th, and I need some Christmas presents. I need a bunch of Barbie dolls, but I know there's a lot of Barbie dolls and some trucks. So, and it's the kindergarten classes, and I will provide the list to Darlene. So if you want to support in, you know, making that happen, I'm going to provide books from the bookstore, but we are going to go over there on December the 18th and give them a, you know, surprise Christmas. I saw pictures from the teacher who I know that works there, and they were even more delayed than Hillsborough County Public Schools in getting back to school. So this will be a nice little incentive. So any donations can be brought to my office from staff.
How many children are we talking about?
There's 27, and so there's I know there's a lot of Barbie dolls on the list, and I know why. But, you know, so anyway, if you want to help out with that, I will provide the list to Darlene, and, you know, hopefully we can get some support there. That's it. Thank you.
That's
Pro Tem.
$4 times 7.
Yeah.
Could have done more, but it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Do you accept Venmo?
You know what? I mean, I will. Darlene can. I'm so busy.
Okay.
Yeah, but, you know, we definitely can.
I'll donate, just hound me for it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'll forget. Councilwoman Hurtak.
All I want to do is file my Form 8B for item number 66 today, where I recuse myself because I have an interest in real property located on the same block as the subject property.
We have a motion from Councilman Hurtak, a second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Receive and file. Is that it? Yes. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I would just like to make a motion to receive and file my Form 8B. For item number 65, and I mentioned the reason
abundance
before.
of caution form.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Carlson, a second.
Yeah.
Second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Shelby.
And just, Councilmember Miranda filed with the clerk his Form 8B for item number 29. I'd ask that you receive and file that.
We have we have a motion from Councilman Vieira, a second from Councilwoman Hurtak. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion to receive and file.
Can I just?
Oh, wait,
can I-
we got one more.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real
Councilman
fast, I forgot when Larry Washington was here earlier, you know, there are lots of staff and lots of departments that have been working extra hours. On my street, just before Thanksgiving, there was city construction going on my street, and solid waste had to accommodate it, and a guy in a truck came by himself, and because he had to maneuver around the construction, he had to hand lift everything. But the thing was, he was doing it 9:30 at 10 o'clock at night. And I called Larry the next day to thank him, and he said the best way you could thank him is to thank all of them globally. So I want to be sure to thank all those folks who are working hard, you know, late at night, early mornings, taking away time from their families.
Thank you, Solid Waste. Okay, we have a motion to receive and file from Councilman Miranda, a second from Councilwoman Hurtak. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Henderson. Councilwoman Henderson, we are adjourned.
your estimation, what's the historical, what are we preserving? Are we preserving when there was this one building from the 1930s? Or are we preserving the one structure that was where the new structure is going to be, but that other structure wasn't there until years later? So I'm kind of feeling